Lauren is pregnant. Let's get divorced.
Here's the divorce papers. I'm quitting caregiving. Justin made this shocking statement to me, who was taking care of his mom alone. However, I didn't even bat an eye at his words. In fact, I obediently handed him the prepared divorce papers.
What? Keep caring for my mom.
No way, because Lauren is. Justin was bewildered by my calm response. I then revealed Lauren's secret to him. My name is Nancy White. I've been married to Justin for 5 years. Now I'm considering divorcing him. What triggered this thought was Justin taking his phone to the bathroom. He used to be indifferent to messages from others, but recently he's been clinging to his phone. Even during meals, he places his phone on the table and sneaks it with him when he leaves the room. The beginning of my suspicion was when he, who had no interest in mobile games or apps, suddenly started behaving like this. When we first got married, there was no sign of cheating at all. When we were dating, he seemed like the most serious guy, someone who would never cheat, which is why I married him. I never imagined I would ever doubt him like this. Another reason I decided to marry him was because his workplace was almost entirely male. He's not bad looking, so if there had been female employees, I might have suspected he would cheat. But the only women at his workplace were a few older employees. Most of them were in their late 50s, much older than us. It seemed unlikely that Justin would be interested in them. If anyone, it would be my sister, Lauren. When I was in elementary school, my mom remarried and we started living with my stepdad and Lauren. She is my stepdad's daughter, and we never got along. Lauren always had a queen bee attitude and treated me poorly. There was a time when the house was full of tension because I stood up to her. However, she was very charming and had a talent for wrapping men around her finger. My stepdad never questioned anything she said, and my mom adored him so much that there wasn't a single person in the house who sided with me. Lauren would do anything to make herself look good. She didn't care if she treated her sister like dirt or used her like an old rag, as long as she was satisfied. She couldn't care less what happened afterward. That's just the kind of person she was. As someone who tried to empathize with others' pain, I was fed up with her tyranny.
Lauren must be lonely because she doesn't have any siblings, so she's probably just relying on you. Forgive her. One day, she'll realize your kindness.
Whenever I complained about Lauren to my mom, she always persuaded me to put up with it. My mom adored my stepdad completely. She was so in love with him that she couldn't see anything else, and he took advantage of this to have affairs with multiple women. As a salesperson at an IT company, he was on business trips most of the year. He was rarely home. So, no matter what he did, my mom never noticed. She believed that she was loved by him and trusted him completely. I started to sense something was off with my stepdad when I was in the upper grades of elementary school. He began to obsessively use his phone, even during meals, keeping it close at all times. It was too late to be just work-related calls, and the look on his face when he received messages was disturbing. He would always check his phone when my mom wasn't looking, and he'd smirk while replying. Although he never showed such behavior before, recently, he doesn't even try to hide it. He must have known my mom was obsessed with him. Out of curiosity, I peeked at his phone and found a series of messages with unknown women, arranging secret meetings and nightly rendezvous. Seeing that, I felt utter contempt for him. I was filled with hatred for him, who took advantage of my mom's feelings and played with her.
Your mom's a fool too, right? A man like my dad wouldn't settle for a woman like her.
Lauren had noticed his behavior. She knew why my stepdad married my mom and made a shocking statement to me.
My dad married your mom because he wanted a convenient woman. Your mom is a great cook and good at housework. For a man like my dad, who isn't struggling financially, it's perfect. She takes care of the kids and gives him his own time. It's a win-win situation. She was used and manipulated for that reason alone.
Listening to Lauren mockingly laugh, I felt a surge of anger. My mom respected my stepdad and worked hard at cooking to gain his approval. I supported my mom's efforts and wanted her to be happy. This dad and daughter duo trampled and toyed with my mom's feelings. I couldn't forgive them. I told my mom about it, but she was probably brainwashed by my stepdad. She didn't listen to me at all. In fact, my mom yelled at me, saying it was terrible to talk about my stepdad like that. After that, I gave up trying to convince her. There was no one in this house who cared about me. I felt like I had no place here. My life took a turn when I decided to go to high school. I heard that a close friend was going to a high school in New York. She planned to move there and look for a job afterward. The moment I heard that, I decided to move to New York too. I left home. I entered a high school student dormitory and started working part-time job after school. That's where I met Justin. Justin had great communication skills and was very popular at the part-time job. He was efficient at work and liked by both men and women, a real leader. He was admired by older women, perhaps because he was a little careless. We grew closer at the Christmas party at the workplace. We ended up sitting next to each other and discovered we liked the same music band. From there, we hit it off and started hanging out outside of work. Gradually, we became closer and naturally started dating. I got married on my 25th birthday. We started living together and had a happy life. Until that day when Lauren visited our home.
Long time no see. I moved here too, so I thought I'd drop by.
Lauren had left her parents' house and moved to New York, just like I did. I couldn't hide my surprise at Lauren's unexpected move. Why are you here, Lauren? Weren't you supposed to have a job back there?
Salaries don't increase much there, and I've always dreamed of living in the city, so I took the plunge and moved.
I knew that was a lie. Lauren wouldn't move here for such a reason. There must be something more. I suspected her, but time passed without me knowing her true intentions.
Hi there. I came over again today.
It's been 5 years since Lauren moved to New York. She started hanging out at our house all the time. The reason was Justin. Lauren began to show interest in Justin around this time. Justin works at a construction company and has weekends off, so Lauren visited our house every weekend. Since she works for a subcontractor of Justin's company, she knows his days off. Claiming she had no friends in New York, she frequently came over to our house.
Hey, Lauren, you're here again today.
Hi, Justin. Yeah, I just came by again.
With a playful tone, Lauren quickly sidled up next to Justin. She took her usual spot beside him and looked at me with a triumphant smile. That smile made my anger boil, and Justin only made it worse.
Come over anytime. It's lonely with just Nancy and me. I'm glad you visit us, Lauren.
Justin, clearly pleased, stretched out his nose. His gaze lingered not on her eyes but on her chest, which made me feel disgusted. Lauren noticed Justin's gaze and, using her body, linked her arm with his, pressing her chest against him. How many times had I seen this scene? Even when I told them this wasn't a hostess bar, they wouldn't listen.
Are you going through menopause or something? You always get so cranky when Lauren comes over. Stop it. You're just being unfair to her.
Justin is so kind. I might start to like him. But don't worry. Nancy is just jealous because she sees how well you treat me. We're not in that kind of relationship.
Nodding in agreement, they exchanged glances. I couldn't believe Lauren's words. Lauren always had a habit of taking what was mine. She would cause a fuss when I got a new toy, making her parents miserable. In middle school, she got jealous if her friends and I got close, driving them away from me. Lauren always felt inferior and tried to take whatever I had. She started coming to our house every weekend. It made me anxious. And it was around that time Justin began carrying his phone with him everywhere, even taking it to the bathroom, just like my stepdad did. I instinctively felt he was cheating. That thought crossed my mind. However, I couldn't find the time to investigate the truth. The reason was my mother-in-law, Julie's caregiving. Justin had asked me to take care of Julie in between my work shifts.
Mom's waiting for a spot in a nursing home. Until we find a place for her, you need to take care of her.
Why me? Have you forgotten all the things Julie has said to me? Julie and I didn't get along very well. When we first got married, things were okay, but Julie was quite meddlesome and often visited our home. Since my father-in-law had passed away early, she must have been lonely. As a result, Julie and Lauren interacted frequently. The two of them would bond and get excited in front of me while I cooked meals and didn't get any personal time. The exhausting life became too much, and I asked Justin to reduce Julie's visits. When Justin conveyed this to Julie, our relationship soured. Julie started berating me, saying she was worried and checking in on us.
How could you be so ungrateful? I'm doing this out of concern for you.
Hearing Julie's patronizing words, I realized it would be difficult to have a good relationship with her, and I began to avoid her. After treating me like that, now you expect me to take care of Julie. Do you really think I can do it happily?
So, you're just going to abandon my mom? I'm out working from morning till night, and I'm the primary breadwinner here, right? If you're going to be so selfish and neglect my mom, then you should earn as much as I do. Then I'll quit my job and take care of her myself.
I had no response. Even though I work from home, my monthly earnings are just under $2,000. Meanwhile, Justin earns over $3,500 after taxes. It would be hard to match his salary with my current job. Plus, I do have more time available. With no words to argue, I reluctantly agreed to take care of Julie. And so, I found myself juggling work and caregiving. This life turned out to be a nightmare. Julie needed physical assistance and had mild dementia. She needed prompts for everything, and sudden changes upset her, leading to frequent tantrums. She remembered the past well, so she would yell at me whenever she saw me, demanding Lauren instead of me.
If only a caring daughter-in-law like Lauren had come instead of someone as heartless as you. You repay kindness with cruelty and still show up with a straight face.
Each time she said that, it left deep wounds in my heart. I can't count how many times I felt hatred toward Julie. But there were also moments when she showed gratitude. She would cry and apologize for her outbursts, and sometimes she calmly explained why she had visited us so often.
Justin has always had a habit of trying to please everyone. He seemed happy with you, but you two didn't have kids. I was worried he might turn to another woman, so I kept an eye on him. I was glad when you and Justin got married. I wanted to protect your happiness.
Julie's words, "You don't understand how I feel," echoed in my mind. The moment I understood her words, tears flowed uncontrollably. Julie visited our home to stop him from straying. She wasn't worried about Justin, she was worried about me. I hadn't realized Julie's kindness and had neglected her. I deeply regretted that, and from then on, even when Julie mentioned Lauren, I chose to endure out of guilt. But then, tragedy struck unexpectedly.
Lauren is pregnant. Let's get divorced.
Justin had gotten Lauren pregnant. It turned out they had indeed developed a romantic relationship. I felt calm, thinking it was exactly as I had expected, rather than being shocked. What do you mean?
Just what I said. Lauren is pregnant. I have to acknowledge the child as the father and take responsibility by marrying her. Otherwise, Lauren and the baby would be pitiful, right?
Pitiful? Justin's words filled me with hatred. He worried about Lauren and the baby, but didn't care about me at all. Even though I was his wife, he saw me as an obstacle.
It would be sad and pitiful for the child not to have a father. Luckily, we don't have kids, so there's no problem if we divorce, right? You can live on your own income. Our love had already faded, hadn't it?
As Justin spoke, laughing, I snapped and pulled out the divorce papers from the living room drawer. When we got married, we had a huge fight over our differing values. That's when Justin brought the divorce papers. Both of our signatures were already on it. All that was left was to submit it to the office. Even though we reached that point, we calmed down and decided not to divorce after talking it through. I kept the divorce papers just in case something happened. Here's the divorce papers. I'm quitting caregiving. When I showed him the papers, Justin smirked. He probably thought he could finally be happy with Lauren and be free from this nightmare. But life isn't that simple. When I immediately said I was done with caregiving, he frowned in confusion.
What? You still need to take care of my mom.
Justin was startled by my sudden declaration to stop caregiving. He hurriedly interrupted, looking at me as if to say, "Wait a minute. Why, we're not even married anymore, so I have no obligation to take care of Julie."
You owe her. Are you not going to repay that debt?
Justin's irritation grew as he repeated words about debt without understanding what Julie really meant. You didn't even know why Julie did what she did, so stop pretending you do.
What did you say?
This wouldn't have happened if you had been responsible. Do you even realize how reckless and careless your actions have been? cheating and behaving so shamelessly? My blunt honesty must have irritated him. Justin began to raise his voice.
It's your fault for not being able to have kids. You couldn't satisfy me as a woman. And a lowlife like you has no right to complain about my cheating. You didn't even try to improve yourself.
No matter what I said, Justin would respond with nonsensical arguments. His behavior was so appalling that I couldn't help but sigh.
You couldn't satisfy me as a woman, so the least you can do is continue caregiving. Lauren and I have jobs, and soon a baby. We can't take care of my mom. Isn't Lauren your sister? Don't you feel any obligation to help her out now that she's having a baby?
No way, because Lauren is. Justin was determined to make me do the caregiving. But I revealed a shocking truth to him. She's not my real sister or anything, just a stranger. Why should I waste my precious time on someone like that?
What?
It was the first time he heard about my family situation. Justin looked confused by what I said. My mom and dad remarried. Both had kids from previous marriages. So Lauren and I are not related by blood. And they divorced last month after Lauren's dad's affair was discovered and my mom left the house. Just as my mom asked me to live with her, your request for a divorce came at the perfect time. I knew about you and Lauren cheating, and I was about to bring it up myself. It was shocking enough for him to learn Lauren wasn't my real sister, but he didn't expect that I knew about their affair. Justin's dumbfounded face was so ridiculous that I almost burst out laughing. By the way, Lauren's dad is a real piece of work. He can't stand it if the house isn't spotless every day, and he thinks anyone who doesn't respect the eldest family member is trash. He'd get furious if anyone started eating before he did. Living at home was suffocating. I hated it so much that I left home when I was in high school just to get away from that family. Hearing the unexpected details, Justin's face turned pale. Realizing he had fallen right into Lauren's trap, he suddenly became anxious about the future. His reaction was so amusing that I couldn't help but laugh. Well, congratulations on the divorce. You were planning to live with Lauren and her dad after divorcing me, right? I'm sure your future will be so happy now.
How do you know that?
He could understand me guessing about living with Lauren, but he was puzzled by how I knew about her dad. The answer was simple. I had thoroughly investigated the two of them. I used my savings to hire a private investigator and asked them to look into Justin and Lauren. They also looked into Lauren's dad. It turned out that Justin and Lauren were planning to live with her dad. Not knowing what kind of person Lauren's dad was, Justin agreed to live with him to stay in Lauren's good graces. But this was a huge mistake for him. Lauren pushed Justin into this because she wasn't confident about living alone with her dad. She knew it. She knew her dad was an incredibly difficult person. Why do you think? Figure it out yourself. Oh wait, you can't. If you had any brains, you wouldn't have agreed to such a ridiculous arrangement.
You bastard.
Justin, filled with anger at my taunting words, looked like he was about to raise his fist. I quickly pulled out my phone and pointed the camera at him. Go ahead, hit me if you want. I'll just take this evidence to the police. Then what will happen to your plans to marry Lauren? What will her dad say? And think about the Pua kid. If they find out their dad is a criminal, they might get bullied at school.
Damn it.
Justin had no guts. As soon as he heard police, He backed down, glaring at me with frustration. Let me tell you something else, Justin. My mom is divorcing my stepdad because of his affair. He has to pay a huge amount in alimony, and you're going to have to pay alimony too, which means you'll be living in poverty. And with a baby on the way, even if you make more than average, this is going to be tough. I told him this with a mocking smile, and his face turned pale. He held his head, realizing how foolish his thinking had been. By the way, Lauren will also be paying alimony.
Holy shit.
He was stunned when I added that. Of course, it's not going to end with just one of you. An unmarried person took a husband from a married woman. Even if we were once family, I wouldn't let this slide. It baffled me how he thought only he would have to pay and everything would be fine. I've suffered a lot because of Lauren, so I'll make sure to collect what I'm owed. From now on, you'll have to take care of Julie, Lauren's dad, and Lauren herself. You'll be busy paying alimony for all three of them. What a hellish life. I would never want that. It would have been smarter to beg Lauren to give up and live with me instead. Hearing this, Justin probably thought I would help if he apologized. He ran over to me on the verge of tears and started to beg.
Please, can't you do something? I didn't think it would turn out like this.
Realizing his foolishness, Justin desperately tried to get me to reconsider the divorce. But that wouldn't work on me. I had lost all affection for Justin a long time ago. Can you give up already? I can't stand the sight of you anymore. I'm so happy to finally be free from you. Thanks to your shameless behavior, I can even ask for more alimony. I couldn't be more grateful. I'm finally free, and I'm filled with a sense of liberation. As I spread my arms to celebrate this happiness, Justin, refusing to give up, grabbed the hem of my pants and begged.
Please, don't say that. Reconsider. Otherwise, I'll be living in hell from now on.
That's not my problem. I coldly dismissed him. When I was suffering, he only cared about himself and never considered my feelings. The resentment and hurt from those times would never fade. I would never let it be forgotten. My eyes must have shown that determination. Seeing my expression, Justin faltered and backed away from me. Whatever you do or whatever happens to you is none of my concern. You brought this on yourself. Don't ask me for help. Just talking to you raises my stress levels. I hate seeing your face and even breathing the same air as you. Do you understand? If I could erase my memories and get rid of every moment with you, I would. Now, can you leave? The title of this house is still in my name. With that, I gathered Justin's things and threw them towards the front door. This house where we currently lived was something I got through my cousin, a real estate agent, who helped me get a good deal right after I started working. Since Justin was also looking for a place to live, he didn't oppose me signing the lease, and he moved into my house, starting our cohabitation. That eventually led to marriage.
You've got to be kidding me. You're acting like this after everything I've done for you. This is your fault for not treating me right.
When he threw his belongings, he must have been really annoyed. Despite being filmed by my phone's camera, he raised his fist at me. At that moment, the front door unlocked, and to my surprise, a detective and my mom came to my rescue.
That's enough, Justin.
Get away from Nancy.
Jesus Christ. Wait, who are you?
Immediately, the detective restrained Justin. Justin, being slimmer than average, was no match for the well-built detective who held him firmly, preventing any movement. My mom hugged me protectively, glaring at Justin with sharp eyes.
I'm a private investigator hired by Nancy. I've been recording everything with hidden cameras, and this footage will serve as evidence.
Hearing the word camera, Justin regained some composure, but his face turned pale with despair. Since I didn't fully trust my phone's camera, I had the detectives set up hidden cameras beforehand. Now, I had all the evidence of Justin's abusive behavior, with witnesses to back it up. Justin's life was completely ruined, and he realized it, falling silent.
Your actions just now constitute assault. If you don't want to make things worse, take your stuff and leave quietly. You don't have a chance of winning this.
Hearing the detective's words, Justin stopped resisting.
Nancy, I'm really sorry. I was wrong. This was all my fault. Please, give me one more chance.
Enough. Although he stopped resisting, his desire for forgiveness hadn't disappeared. Justin, with tears in his eyes, begged me for another chance. But I delivered the final blow. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. That's why I had you sign the divorce papers. You were the one who wanted the divorce, so don't start whining now. You chose to abandon me for your pleasures. It's too late for regrets. I have no lingering feelings for you, no affection. I feel nothing. Now get out. My lawyer will handle any further communication. This was the first time I had spoken so clearly to Justin. Seeing my cold demeanor, he finally gave up, gathered his things, and left. And so, I was freed from years of bondage, truly liberated. I immediately contacted the lawyer the detective recommended and filed the divorce papers. With ample evidence and Justin's outrageous behavior during our talks, I was awarded nearly $80,000 in alimony.
You've got to be kidding. Why should I have to pay such an amount? We were family. How can you demand money from your sister?
When I told Lauren about the alimony, she predictably exploded with anger. Her dad, standing beside her, joined in attacking me. But I had my lawyer present, who logically cornered them both.
You were sisters, not by blood, and while you flaunt that relationship, you took your sister's husband. That's a grave offense and not something excusable just because you're family. You destroyed a family.
Lauren couldn't respond to the lawyer's argument. I took the opportunity to express my long-held resentment. I will never forgive you for what you've done to me, even more than Justin. I'll make sure you pay for everything just like you did to me. Be prepared. Don't think you'll get away with just paying money. Without getting emotional, I delivered the words with a cold gaze and tone, causing a shiver to run through Lauren. She trembled with fear. I asked my lawyer to pursue the matter to the fullest extent. Thanks to him, Lauren was charged $50,000 in alimony. As a result, Lauren and Justin were now burdened with nearly $200,000 in debt. My mom's claim against her ex-husband also exceeded $50,000, plunging them into a hell of debt. But that wasn't the end of it. Another shocking revelation came to light. The child Lauren was carrying wasn't Justin's. It turned out that Lauren had been seeing another man while she was with Justin. The child Lauren was carrying was actually fathered by another man, not Justin. That man happened to be a junior colleague at Justin's company. The junior colleague, knowing about Lauren's infidelity, refused to acknowledge the child. When he heard about Lauren's plan to remarry Justin, he exposed her misdeeds within the company. Both Justin and Lauren were fired from their jobs, shunned by acquaintances, and divorced just 1 month after remarrying. Lauren ended up having to pay alimony to Justin, leading to her financial ruin. They now work day-to-day jobs to pay off their debts. Since then, I've been living with my mom.
The moment I left him, I vowed to protect you, Nancy.
My mom actually helped me with hiring the detective. Her support gave me the courage to divorce Justin and face him head-on.
From now on, no matter what happens, I'm on your side.
My mom supported me just as she had promised. After the divorce, I used my computer skills to start an online business. Working from home, I created a community for people who couldn't attend school, providing an online environment similar to a free school. I developed curricula to support the education of kids who couldn't go to school and taught them the necessary computer skills they would need in the future. I went through a lot of pain without having anyone to talk to. I don't want young people to experience the same thing. I said in a magazine interview, these words caught the attention of many people, and now I receive numerous interview requests from TV stations. Thanks to this exposure, my business has flourished. I've received words of gratitude from many families who use our services. Encouraged by these words, I plan to continue creating safe spaces where I can help others.
You two will never be happy. Her mocking words echoed in my mind. That won't happen. I will be happy with Michael and our baby. Determined, I fought to give birth to our baby.
I'm sorry. I'm late.
5 hours after the birth, Michael rushed in, and just seeing him made me feel relieved. Look, this is our daughter. I showed our baby to Michael, expecting him to be overjoyed. However, his reaction was completely unexpected.
What? No, this can't be.
Michael? Contrary to my expectations, Michael began to tremble.
Why did this happen?
What's wrong? What happened? I was confused by his reaction. Then I noticed that his gaze wasn't directed at me or our daughter. Michael, what are you seeing? I asked, thinking his sixth sense was showing him something.
Actually,
Michael began to speak hesitantly, explaining the situation. His words left me in complete shock. I'm Emily, 26 years old, and I'm an engineer as well as a part-time homemaker. I was born and raised in my hometown as the youngest child, and I was spoiled by everyone around me. Of course, I was also properly scolded when I did something wrong, so I believe I grew up as a typical, normal woman.
You were always smiling and never caused any trouble.
My mom often said that about me. Apparently, I was always smiling since I was little, and I was able to keep myself happy. My brothers were always causing chaos, but I was easy to take care of. At first, I didn't think much of it when I heard these stories, but when I became an adult and met my future husband, Michael, I learned the truth.
hey, you're the new hire, right? Do you have a moment to chat? You might not believe this, but I actually have a sixth sense.
According to him, there are always people who seem like my ancestors watching over me with a smile. He thought I must be a wonderful person loved by my ancestors, which is why he reached out to me. To be honest, I didn't believe in spirits or anything like that. But from his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Maybe it was my ancestors who kept me happy when I was a kid. So I shared with him the story my mom had told me.
Those are some great ancestors.
He said that with a smile. As we continued talking, we grew closer.
So, if you don't mind, would you go out with me, Emily?
Eventually, he confessed his feelings, and we started dating. It seems he really does have a strong sixth sense, as he would sometimes look scared at nothing.
When I'm with you, I feel safe because bad things don't come near.
According to Michael, the ancestors watching over me protect us from anything bad. Because of that, he said he feels calm and at peace whenever we're together. I feel happy when I'm with you too, Michael.
In that case, why don't we get married?
And so we decided to get married. My parents liked him as well, and we enjoyed a peaceful married life. Although we are happy now, it was tough before we got married.
My dad is fine, but my sister, Laura, is a handful.
According to Michael, his sister Laura is a difficult person. His dad, Robert, has always taken Michael's stories seriously and has always been on his side. However, Laura, who was spoiled by their mom, Rachel, is different. She always thinks she's the best and that her opinion is the only correct one.
I've never gotten along with Laura since we were kids. I pretty much left home like I was running away from her.
Laura doesn't believe in anything supernatural and has always called Michael a liar. Because of this, Michael and Laura don't get along at all.
Mom always spoiled Laura.
Rachel, who has already passed away, doted on Laura. Laura, raised by Rachel, who never disciplined her and spoiled her, grew up to be selfish, causing Robert a lot of trouble.
Above all, Laura looks down on me. She might say something terrible to you, Emily.
It's okay. I won't let it bother me, no matter what she says. I said this to Michael, but I was a little worried. I'd never had someone like that around me before. Technically, there were people who talked badly about me, but I kept my distance from them. However, this time it was family, so I couldn't avoid it.
Honestly, Laura and I are practically estranged, so you don't have to force yourself to get along with her.
Sensing my anxiety, Michael said this gently. His kind words and smile reassured me, and I nodded. I'm with such a kind person. Everything will be fine. Then, on the day we went to introduce ourselves, I nervously visited Michael's family home.
You seem like a kind Emily. Please take care of Michael.
Robert seemed like a gentle person and warmly welcomed me. I felt relieved by his kind demeanor, similar to Michael's.
Wait, why is Michael here?
Just then, a woman appeared before us. As soon as he saw her, the smile on Michael's face turned to disgust.
Why are you here? You weren't supposed to be here today.
It's none of your business.
Watching their exchange, I quickly realized that this woman was Michael's sister, Laura.
Weren't you going shopping?
I realized I didn't have any money. Dad, can I have some allowance?
Michael's sister must be an adult by now, and yet she's asking her dad for allowance. As I was internally taken aback by her behavior, she looked at me.
Who is she?
She is my fiancée.
What? Michael, you're getting married?
As she stared wide-eyed, I hurriedly introduced myself. Laura looked me up and down and then laughed.
She looks so plain. Michael, you have such bad taste.
I never expected such a reaction, and I was completely stunned.
How rude. Emily, let's go.
Michael grabbed my arm as I stood frozen.
Oh, running away.
And Lauren laughed and Robert scolded her. Then we left the house.
I'm really sorry about Laura.
When we got back to the apartment we shared, Michael apologized to me. Don't apologize so much. I was just a bit surprised. When I said that, he sighed in relief. But his expression looked a bit weary. Michael, what's wrong?
Actually, Mom was behind Laura. She kept saying, "My cute little Laura" and "my useless son Michael."
So that's why his mood suddenly changed. That must have been tough. You should get some rest today.
Thank you, Emily.
With that, Michael went into the bedroom. He really is exhausted. I watched his tired figure disappear into the room. Still, to show favoritism between siblings. When I heard Michael's story, I honestly couldn't believe it. My parents loved me, the youngest, and my siblings equally, so I never felt any favoritism. I couldn't believe there were people who would change their attitude just because someone was a sister or a brother. But well, I'll just have to give Michael all the love he didn't get from Rachel. I muttered to myself and decided to love Michael more than ever. After meeting each other's families, we spent our days busy preparing for the wedding. However, I couldn't neglect my work. So I was quite busy at the office as well.
Hey, isn't that Emily?
What? On my way to a meeting room, someone called out to me and I stopped. It was Laura. I never expected to see her at the same company, and I froze again. Seeing me like that, Laura smirked.
So you work at this company?
Well, thank you for the other day. The meeting time was approaching, but I couldn't ignore her. So I made the minimum polite greeting and tried to leave.
What a waste of time that was. And to think you're one of our clients.
You've got to be kidding me. It seemed she was from the company we were about to have a meeting with.
Good to know. Looking forward to working with you.
Yes, looking forward to it too. I managed to respond while listening to her brag as we walked to the meeting room. However, her demeanor completely changed during the meeting.
I have high hopes for you, Emily.
I've heard great things about you. I'm excited to work together.
Both my boss, Steve, and Laura's boss, John, expressed their high expectations for me.
Even though you look so plain.
Normally, I would be thrilled to hear such praise, but her glaring made it hard to feel happy. Then John sighed deeply.
You should try to follow her example.
Right after that, I felt a chilling gaze. Laura's eyes were filled with obvious dislike and hostility towards me. For the first time, I was at a loss for words under such a gaze.
Is something wrong?
No, nothing at all. I glanced at Laura again. She was no longer looking at me. However, I couldn't shake the chills.
Really? Laura went at your company?
I immediately consulted it with Michael. He didn't know that Laura was with the client either. His surprised expression showed his concern for me.
Are you okay? How are you feeling?
I had chills earlier, but I'm okay now. According to Michael, it seems that Rachel, who was attached to Laura, saw me as an enemy but was stopped by my ancestors.
Emily, let's talk to Steve about this. Honestly, we don't know what Laura might do.
Nodding at his suggestion, we spoke to Steve about Laura. We didn't mention what Michael had seen, but explained that she was his estranged sister and would be part of the family soon.
I see. But Emily, you're crucial for this project. I'll discuss it with them.
The project revolves around an app I developed. Therefore, I have to be involved no matter what. On the other hand, it seemed Laura had insisted on tagging along with John.
Don't worry, I'll make sure it succeeds.
Laura was enthusiastic, but her behavior was embarrassing. Steve had already considered excluding her from the project. In the end, Laura was removed from the project, deepening our rift.
I'll never forgive you.
Angry over the situation, she tried to cause trouble for us.
Enough is enough.
Not only did Robert scold her, but he also finally kicked her out of the house. As a result, Laura had to urgently find a new place to live, leaving her with no time to bother us. However, Laura wasn't the type to back down.
I will never bless your marriage, and you two will never be happy.
She said this with a laugh just before being kicked out of the house. Her words gave me a bad feeling.
Don't worry about Laura. I'll make you happy.
And so we got married. Contrary to Laura's words, we enjoyed a happy life after our wedding. Then something wonderful happened.
Congratulations!
I found out I was pregnant. When I told Michael, my parents, and Robert, everyone was overjoyed. I was thrilled too, but pregnancy was quite challenging. I had severe morning sickness. The baby was in a breech position and other difficulties, but I persevered to have this baby. Normally, Michael would support me, but he was busy making up for my absence at work.
I'm really sorry.
Don't worry about it. Just focus on work for both of us. Because of this, I couldn't rely on Michael as much as I wanted. I would have asked my parents for help, but since they were in the country, it was difficult to meet them. Could it be? Laura's words crossed my mind. Could Laura have cursed me? No, that's impossible. I understood spiritual matters because of Michael, but I couldn't believe in curses. Even if there is a curse, I won't let it defeat me. I whispered this to myself while rubbing my belly, making a firm resolution. Perhaps because of this determination, my baby continued to grow healthily. Finally, the day arrived.
Emily, hang in there.
The childbirth was extremely difficult. No matter how many hours passed, our baby wouldn't come out. I clung to consciousness, gritting my teeth to endure.
You two will never be happy.
Her mocking words echoed in my mind. That won't happen. I will be happy with Michael and our baby. Determined, I fought to give birth to our baby.
I'm sorry. I'm late.
5 hours after the birth, Michael rushed in, and just seeing him made me feel relieved. Look, this is our daughter. I showed our baby to Michael, expecting him to be overjoyed. However, his reaction was completely unexpected.
What? No, this can't be.
Michael? Contrary to my expectations, Michael began to tremble.
Why did this happen?
What's wrong? What happened? I was confused by his reaction. Then I noticed that his gaze wasn't directed at me or our daughter. Michael, what are you seeing? I asked, thinking his sixth sense was showing him something.
Actually,
Michael began to speak hesitantly, explaining the situation. His words left me in complete shock.
Actually, my mom was just here. She was trying to possess our newborn daughter, and she said, I don't want the child of someone who torments Laura.
Michael tried to stop her, but he doesn't have the ability to perform exorcisms. So all he could do was tremble in fear.
Then my dad appeared.
His words took me by surprise. He was undoubtedly talking about Robert. But Robert is still alive.
I was confused because my dad shouldn't have appeared.
Robert and Rachel then disappeared together. That's when Michael muttered, "Why did this happen?"
We don't know the whole truth, but let's just be happy about our daughter's birth.
Michael then looked at our daughter. His expression was full of love and tenderness. Seeing him genuinely happy about her birth made me smile too. But the next day, when Michael came to the hospital, he looked pale. "Michael, what's wrong?" Seeing him so different from the day before, I asked in a panic.
My dad was in a car accident yesterday.
"What? The kind Robert?" He had been looking forward to holding our daughter. How could Robert be in a car accident? How bad are his injuries? When I asked, Michael shook his head.
He didn't make it.
His words left my mind blank. According to Michael, Robert was the victim of a hit and run. By the time a passerby noticed him lying on the ground, he had already passed away. Moreover, this happened just as I was in labor, struggling with the pain.
It really was Dad who helped us back then.
That might be true. Knowing the kind-hearted Robert, he must have been watching over me, concerned for my well-being. Then, just when Rachel appeared to harm our daughter, Robert protected us. Michael nodded with a tearful expression at my words. His feelings were likely more painful than I could imagine.
Dad protected us. Now it's my turn to protect both of you.
Michael said as he held me and our daughter tightly. His expression showed a sense of resolve, and his gaze seemed to be looking beyond me. Perhaps he was seeing something I couldn't. "Michael?"
Your ancestors are telling me a lot. It's time to settle things with Laura.
At that moment, I didn't understand why he mentioned Laura, but a few months later, I would come to know what he meant. After that, without any major issues, I was able to return home safely.
Hi, Emily and Mary.
Michael warmly welcomed us. Mary is the name of our daughter, our precious, beloved child. If there is anyone who would harm our daughter, I will confront them head on. As we looked at Mary's peacefully sleeping face, I made a firm resolution.
Shall we go?
Yes, let's go. We left Mary with my parents for a short while and went to a certain place.
What? Why are you here?
We went to the company where Laura works. We had obtained permission from our client in advance and arranged to use a meeting room for a discussion.
What do you want?
Our daughter, Mary, was born recently.
Laura's already displeased expression twisted even more.
Gosh, so I failed. And what about it?
You were trying to harm Mary to get back at us, weren't you?
Michael's cold words made Laura's shoulders shake. He must have hit the mark. Laura has a high ego and can't stand not being number one. Feeling that I had hurt her pride, she plotted to harm what was most precious to me, Mary, to get her revenge.
You mistakenly thought Emily was out to get you and tried to take Mary away from her. But Dad stopped you.
Even after kicking Laura out, Robert was watching to see if he could do anything to help. He noticed Laura's plans to harm me and Mary and tried to intervene and convince her otherwise.
You saw Dad as an obstacle, so you ran him over, didn't you? Probably thought you could get some inheritance too.
Laura flinched at Michael's words. On the day Robert had his accident, he actually confronted Laura in front of her workplace.
Stop bothering Michael and Emily, and don't do anything stupid.
Robert had warned Laura. Infuriated, Laura ran him over on his way home.
You know I have a sixth sense, right? Dad told me everything.
Hearing from Robert, Michael realized he couldn't reveal Laura's crime without evidence. So while I was in the hospital, he investigated.
It was hard to find, but I finally got it on a dash cam.
Got what?
A video of Dad walking and your car speeding toward him.
Even the police hadn't found it, but Michael's persistence paid off. He showed Laura a copy of the evidence. Laura looked down for a moment after seeing the evidence and muttered,
Oh my God, this is the worst. Why do you and Dad always have to mess things up for me?
Then she looked at us with an annoyed expression.
It's always been like that. Mom would listen to anything I said, but you two just kept getting in my way.
Of course we did.
Michael, not backing down from Laura's glare, began to share his long-held feelings.
You believed Mom when she said, "The world is yours," and you've done whatever you wanted since then.
As a child, she would take toys from others, and in school, she caused trouble by going after other people's boyfriends. And it was always Robert who cleaned up her messes.
Because of you, I was always known as the spoiled brat's brother. And despite keeping my sixth sense a secret within the family, you spread rumors that I was a liar, causing me endless trouble. You've always been the problem.
But unlike you, I only had Mom on my side.
You brought it on yourself.
No one wants to be around a selfish person, especially one who causes them trouble.
Even so, Dad tried to take responsibility for you until the end. But now he's gone. It's time for you to take responsibility for yourself.
Michael told Laura with a fierce glare. Despite being intimidated, Laura glared back.
What if Dad hadn't interfered?
He did what any father would do. By the way, what were you doing during Dad's funeral?
Robert's funeral was held while I was still in the hospital. Later, I managed to pay my respects, but Laura never showed up.
That's none of your business.
You're right. It's not anymore.
Laura looked shocked at his words.
You're no longer my sister.
Ignoring Laura, Michael continued. After that, Laura was arrested for her involvement in Robert's death. She might also face additional charges for obstructing the police during her arrest.
Let's completely cut ties with Laura.
So we decided to sever all ties with Laura. Are you sure? She's your only remaining family, Michael.
My family is you, Emily, and Mary.
Michael smiled. He was not alone. However, I still had some concerns. She won't come after me or Mary again, right?
Don't worry. In the end, she can't do anything on her own.
Until now, Rachel and Robert, each in their own way, had protected her. Rachel took care of Laura's needs and made arrangements to ensure she was okay even after her passing. Robert, despite his anger at Laura's actions, couldn't completely cut her off and continued to look after her. Without them, Laura was overwhelmed just trying to manage it on her own.
So, as long as we keep our distance, we'll be fine.
Laura was fired over this incident. Apparently, her reputation at the company was already poor.
An investigation revealed that she was taking credit for her co-workers' work and using insulting language and behavior.
As a result, no one defended her, and she was let go. After that, we decided to relocate. The app I developed was a big success, leading to the creation of a new branch. I was assigned as the branch manager, with Michael as my assistant, once I returned from maternity leave. I can't believe it's close to my parents' house. This means I can easily rely on my parents for help. I'm excited about raising Mary with everyone.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Michael looked relieved. Being free from Laura might have brought about a change in his feelings. By the way, what were my ancestors doing?
They were primarily there to protect you, and my dad was there too.
Despite Rachel's efforts, she couldn't overcome Robert. Thanks to him, Mary was born safely. Perhaps because of that, Laura ended up taking matters into her own hands and got rid of Robert. We owe so much to Robert. Just recently, Robert's will was found. Maybe he had sensed something too. The will stated, "Nothing for Laura. I want my assets used for Mary's future." Now it's our turn to protect Mary.
Yes, absolutely.
Robert is surely watching over Mary as she grows. To put Robert's mind at ease, let's protect her ourselves. Michael and I made that promise to each other. After that, Laura was sentenced to prison. She was on the news as the terrible daughter who committed a hit and run on her father. Now she has no place to go. Even when she gets out, everyone will recognize her, so she won't have anywhere to belong. Also, the house Robert and Laura used to live in is up for sale. Everyone is cooperating by not revealing where we've moved, so we can focus on raising Mary in peace. Just then, I heard Mary crying while watching the news. Smiling, I went to her.
Emily, did you see the news?
Yes, I did. Michael, who had just come home, spoke to me while holding Mary.
Apparently, the company received a letter from her.
Really?
Yeah. One of my coworkers thought we should know and told me.
The letter supposedly said, "I'm remorseful, and please help me." Apparently, they read it and then tore it up.
She caused so much trouble and hurt so many people. It's unreasonable for her to think anyone would help her.
I nodded in agreement with him. A few years later, as Mary continues to grow healthily, Michael and I are busy with work, finding comfort in her presence.
Mommy, guess what?
What is it, Mary?
Grandpa says thank you.
I tilted my head at Mary's words. I thought she was talking about my dad, her grandfather. But would my dad really send a message like that? Mary, where is this grandpa? When I asked, Mary pointed to an empty spot. That reminded me of what my mom and Michael had told me in the past. You are just like me. Just as my ancestors used to keep me happy. Robert must be watching over Mary in the same way. Thank you so much.
Mommy?
Let's have a snack. Mary responded with a smile, and her cheerful demeanor soothed me once again.
So, Dad is still watching over us.
When I told Michael, who had just come home, he spoke with a sense of deep emotion.
Let's go visit him together soon.
I nodded with a smile at his words.
Yay!
Mary also replied with a bright smile. A few days later, during a long weekend, we visited the land where Robert's house used to be for the first time in a while.
Oh.
Michael's gaze was fixed in a particular direction. Following his gaze, I saw a woman in tattered clothes, walking unsteadily. I thought she looked familiar. Could that be Laura?
Probably.
Michael responded while looking away. He quickly lost interest and picked up Mary with a smile. I glanced back at Laura before following Michael. Later, I confirmed with a former colleague that the woman was indeed Laura.
She's working multiple part-time jobs, just scraping by each day.
She must be struggling a lot. I remembered her looking much older than her actual age and felt a bit of pity. Michael probably wouldn't feel the same. Maybe she's finally facing the consequences of her actions. Her misfortune would likely continue, because, as it was her just desserts. Later, I heard from the same colleague that Laura had been arrested for theft. I need to forget about her quickly. I need to forget about Laura and focus on being happy with my family. I'm sure Robert would want that. Well, I have to work hard. As the branch manager, I have a lot of responsibilities. Even though Michael helps me as my assistant, I need to do my best. I also want to create a new app. I envisioned a game that even small children could play. I might have less time to spend with Mary. But if she can play with the app I create, it would be a way to stay connected.
That sounds great. Let me help. It's a gift for Mary after all.
Michael said with a smile, having fully moved on. Not wanting to be outdone by him, I decided to put in my best effort too. Eventually, the app we created became a worldwide sensation.
I love this game,
Mary said with a beaming smile. We were genuinely delighted by her words. As our achievements were recognized, we advanced even further in our careers.
Maybe cutting ties with her brought us all this good fortune.
It's the result of our hard work.
You're right.
We began a new journey together, determined to be happy. A few more years later, I was busy with my duties as a branch manager.
Mom, Grandpa says not to overwork yourself.
Sorry about that. Apparently, Mary could still see Robert. She might have inherited this ability from Michael.
But he doesn't appear to me.
Michael had only seen Robert on the day Mary was born. Maybe Robert is just shy. After Rachel passed away, her ghostly appearance had frightened Michael quite a bit.
Maybe that's why he doesn't show up in front of me.
I'd love to see Robert too. As I whispered this, a breeze passed between us. It felt as if he was telling us that he was by our side, even if we couldn't see him.
Daddy. Mommy. Hurry up.
Okay. We smiled and headed towards Mary, who was calling us with a bright smile.
Mary is quite a handful.
Now I'm sticking with my mom and dad because I'm going to be a big sister soon.
We exchanged glances at her words. A few days later, a visit to the hospital confirmed that I was pregnant with our second child. We promised to embrace this new life and be happy together.
Don't skip out on the family gathering. Who cares about stuff like a parent's funeral? Get over here right now.
I couldn't believe my ears when I received that call in the midst of my mother's funeral. A family gathering? Don't skip out. Who in the world would abandon their own parents' funeral to attend their husband's family gathering? Actually, it's odd that Tom isn't even here in the first place. I was deeply struck by how shallow Tom was, and it made my blood boil. Understood. I composed myself and responded calmly. Fortunately, the funeral was almost over. Mom, just wait a bit for me. Normally, I wouldn't want to leave my mother's side for a second, but I couldn't stand the thought of Tom having his way any longer. After my mother's funeral ended and relatives began taking a lunch break, I approached my father. Dad, I'm going to see Tom for a bit. I'll be right back, so don't worry. At my word, my father seemed to understand something and nodded, sure. I clenched my fists tight and dashed out of the funeral hall, still dressed in mourning attire. My name is Christina Johnson. I'm 30 years old and work at a call center. I've been dating someone for 6 months now. His name is Tom Williams. He's 5 years senior to me and works as a government employee at the city hall. Tom has a gentle face with droopy eyes, which suits his job as a government employee. Tom commutes from his parents' house to the city hall where he works. His parents' house is located in a rural area far from the urban center, and he drives to work from there. In essence, we first crossed paths when I was out doing my hobby of photography in his hometown. In a remote area I seldom visit, I found myself lost on a dark country road after sunset, feeling utterly bewildered.
Are you okay?
It was Tom who asked through the window of the approaching car rolled down. I was surprised, but honestly explained that I was lost due to my unfamiliarity with the area. Tom looked so kind that I instantly knew he was a good person.
It's quite far from the nearest station from here. Shall I give you a ride?
But I was hesitant to get into a car with a man I had just met, but Tom said, I know, and pulled out his government employee ID from his wallet to show me. I'm this kind of person. But if you're scared to get in the car, it's perfectly fine to refuse, he said, considerately giving me the option to decide what I wanted to do next. A moment of hesitation, considering it would take more than 30 minutes on foot to the station. And it was already dark. I didn't have the energy to walk to the station by myself. Well then, I appreciate your kind offer. So I got into Tom's car. He was just as gentle and calm as he appeared at first. After safely dropping me off at the station, Tom shyly asked for my contact information. I wouldn't normally give out my contact information so easily to men, but seeing Tom's character, I felt it was all right to exchange it with him. We've gone on a few dates and gotten to know each other, and 3 months after we first met, Tom confessed his feelings to me, and that's when our relationship started. Even after we started dating, I feel like our relationship has been going smoothly. Perhaps because he's a government employee with a stable job, he always seemed to have a sense of calm. Being 5 years senior, his confident demeanor reassured me. Even though I was inexperienced in love, I came to think that if I could have a peaceful relationship with him, it would be all I could wish for. It's been nearly 6 months since Tom and I started dating, and just the other day, Tom proposed to me.
If I were to marry anyone, it would be you. If you're okay with it, would you come to live with me near my parents' house?
Tom asked me in the sweetest tone as usual. It seems that since his father is a farmer, he needs to help out with farming on his days off from work. So, he expressed that even after marriage, he'd like to live close to his parents' home. I hesitated a bit, because my mother was sick, and the doctor has given her a prognosis that she might not have much time left. The hospital where my mother was admitted was in the city where I currently live, so if I were to move to his hometown, I wouldn't be able to visit my mother as easily and quickly as before. But I really wanted to let my mom know about my marriage soon, to give her some peace of mind. She was always worried about my future. Now that I was 30, so I've come to realize that marrying Tom would be the best way to reassure her. After some thought, since I had no objections to marrying Tom, I replied, yes, I'd love to. At that moment, I was so happy to be marrying Tom that I didn't mind the idea of living near his parents, thinking I could still visit my mom over time. Looking back, I realized that decision was a mistake, but caught up in the moment of the proposal, I was completely blinded by love. As soon as we decided to get married, I took the opportunity to introduce Tom to my parents at the hospital when my mom was feeling well. Tom brought his parents along, and we all met at the hospital.
It's such a relief to see Tom finally getting married. We've been looking forward to meeting you. He's not much for doing things on his own, so it's good he found a responsible lady.
Come on, Mom. That's embarrassing.
It seemed like Tom's mother, Mary, was somewhat anxious about him not being married yet, but she was happy that he was getting married to me, chatting away with a smile the entire time. Mary was quite the talker, while my parents just nodded along with it. I see. Unlike Mary, Tom's father, Kevin, tended to be more reserved, and the initial introductions mostly proceeded according to Mary's discretion. Occasionally, Tom made witty remarks to Mary, and I felt they had a good relationship as a parent and child.
So, Christina, we need you to step up and handle various things, so please make sure you're on board.
Mary said in a sticky tone at the end, leaving me feeling a bit uneasy. Step up and handle various things. I was unsure what to strive for, but without delving deeper, the meet and greet was over. Thus, after marrying Tom, I moved to live near his parents' house as originally planned. We settled in a small apartment just a 10-minute walk away from my in-laws' place. I was relieved that it wasn't a living arrangement with his parents, preferring just the two of us to live together. On the first day of moving into the apartment, the doorbell rang. Suspecting it might be some sort of solicitation, I opened the door, only to find my Mary standing there.
Oh, Christina, dear, I was just wondering what your new place looks like. Do you mind if I take a look around?
Sure. Tom hadn't mentioned anything about his mother coming over, but it seemed he knew she would come because he welcomed her enthusiastically, saying, "Come on in, Mom."
Wow, it's a bit cramped, but a pretty clean house, since you'll be taking care of the housework. Christina, make sure to clean around the kitchen and bathrooms, or dirt will pile up quickly. I've heard that young people these days don't even open windows, so make sure to ventilate regularly. Mold could grow, and it might affect Tom's health. And on weekends, come help out with our farm. Tom is tired from work, so you need to work hard instead. Also, you shouldn't make the dishes too heavily seasoned. Tom might have high blood pressure, you know.
Mary said rapidly. Although she spoke gently, there was an undeniable pressure that didn't allow for any objections. I was surprised enough that my mill would meddle in our household matters, which wasn't anticipated. Moreover, all her concerns revolved around things like Tom's tired or Tom's health is affected, centered on Tom. It's fine to adore her own child, but I wondered if it was appropriate to impose such expectations on her DIL who had just joined the family. You're absolutely right, Mary, but I also work at a call center during the day, so I return home around the same time as Tom, and I think we should share the household chores. Of course, I'll do what I can, but decisions about the couple are made between the two of us. At that time, unaware of the true extent of my mill's character, I confidently expressed my opinion. She seemed taken aback by my rebuttal for a moment, but soon I could see her expression shift to one of simmering anger.
What are you talking about? Is working at a call center busier than a government employee's job? I don't think so. Don't pretend you're doing as much as Tom. And housework has always been the woman's responsibility. That's what marriage is.
I was surprised. I felt deeply uncomfortable that my mill was imposing her old-fashioned values on me and siding with Tom. Looking to Tom for support, he awkwardly started.
Let's not go too far, Mom. Christina didn't mean any harm, right?
Right, but I reluctantly agreed with that, and my mill said, that's enough. Before turning on her heel and leaving the house, I had hoped that Tom would stand up to his mother more firmly on my behalf, so I was somewhat disappointed that he only half-heartedly defended me. After his mother left, I turned to Tom with a question. Is Mary always like that, imposing her old-fashioned values on us? I was quite surprised, I said with a sigh. To this, Tom looked at me puzzled and said, huh? With a bewildered expression.
And old-fashioned values. I agree with her, actually. I do expect you to handle the household chores. I'll help with the form, but since my job as a government employee already involves a lot of physical work, I'd like to rest on weekends. You agreed to it when we got married, right? And please don't speak badly of my mom. It hurts me.
I was speechless at Tom's stance. What exactly is going on? I knew we'd be living near his parents, but I never agreed to take on all the household chores. The talk was about helping out on the farm now and then. But once things got going, this was the reality. Tom's mother must really adore him. And Tom, in turn, loves his mother dearly. At 35, Tom was what you'd call a mama's boy. From then on, I was dismayed by their numerous words and actions. My mill would come over without any particular reason and say things like, Tom told me he's tired today, so please make his favorite beef stew. And Tom wants to go on a trip next weekend, so we're going together. Christina, please take care of the house and the farm work. Make sure you don't slack off, pushing her own agenda. Why does Tom hardly ever communicate with me, yet he constantly tells his mother when he's tired or wants to go on a trip? It's as if his mother is more of a wife to him, and I'm just a maid. My dissatisfaction kept building up, leading me to deeply regret marrying Tom. On the weekend when my mill and Tom were away on a trip, I headed to my in-laws' place after visiting my mom. My intention was to help my Phil with the farming. Although it felt odd to be helping out at my in-laws' house by myself while my mill and Tom were out having fun, I thought I might get scolded by my mill if I slacked off. Moreover, it's true that I wanted to help because my Phil is a good person.
Seriously, what are they thinking? Going on a trip together and leaving Christina to handle everything alone. I'm truly sorry about that.
It seems my Phil expressed his dismay at Tom and Mary's selfishness. He sincerely apologized to me. No, it's okay, Kevin. I actually enjoy helping you out.
Do you? Anyway, how's your mom doing?
Her condition doesn't seem to be improving much. She might be, soon. I didn't want to delve into that further, so I lowered my gaze.
Christina.
My Phil looked at me intently, seemingly hesitant to share something. His hesitation suggested he was wrestling with whether it was the right time to speak. Is something wrong? He's not usually one for many words, so he might be struggling to figure out how to broach the subject. I encouraged him to share, hoping to make it easier for him to communicate.
There's something I need to tell you.
He finally began, his voice heavy with significance.
So that's the situation.
After hearing my FIL's story, I was left speechless. That can't be true, can it?
Yes, it's true. Even though you've just gotten married, I don't know how to apologize enough.
My Phil said, visibly shrinking into himself with a look of profound regret. Knowing he wasn't to blame, I urged him to lift his head. Please look up. Even as I struggled to fully comprehend the gravity of the facts he had just shared with me. What should I do now? If what my Phil said was true, I needed to seriously consider my next steps. I looked at him, lost in thought.
I want you to do what you feel is right. I'll support you fully.
I understood. Thank you. Despite saying that, all through the night after returning home, I couldn't shake off the story I heard from my Phil. What should I do next? And how should I face Dom and my Mill when they returned from their trip? These questions preoccupied me. A month later, my mother passed away. Although the doctors had warned us that she didn't have much time left, her death was a devastating blow, particularly for my father, marking the most shocking event of his life. Tomorrow is Mom's funeral. When I conveyed it to Tom with feeling dejected, he simply responded with "Got it." Lately, Tom had been coming home later than usual, possibly due to being busier at work. That day, my Mill came over again. Expecting perhaps some words of condolence, I was instead met with her critical gaze and harsh words. "What's with that swollen face? It's embarrassing to look like that even if your mom has passed away." My face was swollen from crying over my mother's death. Yet, without offering a single word of sympathy, she chose to mock me, and her demeanor unsettlingly pleased. Anger rose within me at her insensitivity, but I found myself too drained to express it. The day after, on Saturday, my mother's funeral was scheduled to take place near my family home. I left home before Tom and met with my father to discuss the funeral arrangements. As the chief mourner, my father had many responsibilities and seemed busy. I stood by his side, assisting him. Our relatives began to gather around, offering their greetings to me and my father. The sorrow for my mother's untimely departure was evident on everyone's faces. I noticed that even though my relatives and attendees were all gathered, Tom and my Mill were nowhere to be seen. My Phil has been here for hours, sitting in his seat. What's going on? Tom mentioned that it would take him a bit of time to prepare, but could he really be preparing up until the last minute? When our eyes met, my Phil also had a puzzled look on his face. As the funeral for my mother began, Tom and my Mill never showed up in the end. During the ceremony, I felt my phone vibrating with incoming calls in my pocket. Initially, I ignored it, but the persistent ringing eventually compelled me to step outside for a moment to check. The caller was none other than Tom. Concerned that they might have encountered an accident on their way to the venue. So, feeling a strange sense of foreboding, I answered the call from Tom. "Hello, Tom. Where are you?" When I asked in a whispering voice, Tom didn't give me a straight answer to my question. Instead, he abruptly said something completely unexpected.
Don't skip out on the family gathering. Who cares about stuff like a parent's funeral? Get over here right now.
Receiving a call from Tom during my mother's funeral, I couldn't believe my ears. I was so surprised by the harsh tone and the content of the message from Tom, who is usually calm, that I actually pulled the phone away from my ear in shock. A family gathering? Don't skip out. Who in the world would abandon their own parents' funeral to attend their husband's family gathering? Actually, it's odd that Tom isn't even here in the first place. I was deeply struck by how shallow Tom was, and it made my blood boil. Understood. I composed myself and responded calmly. Fortunately, the funeral was almost over. Mom, just wait a bit for me. Normally, I wouldn't want to leave my mother's side for a second, but I couldn't stand the thought of Tom having his way any longer. After my mother's funeral ended and relatives began taking a lunch break, I approached my father. Dad, I'm going to see Tom for a bit. I'll be right back, so don't worry. At my word, my father seemed to understand something and nodded, sure. I clenched my fists tight and dashed out of the funeral hall still dressed in mourning attire. Upon learning that a gathering was being held with Tom's maternal relatives, my Phil and I decided to head there together. It seems hearing me talk to Tom on the phone convinced my Phil that he also had something to say to them. Tom told me that the venue was at my Mill's sister's place. After ringing the doorbell and being ordered by Tom in a commanding tone to come in, I exchanged a surprised look with my Phil before we made our appearance before my Mill and Tom. I'm very sorry for being late. Upon my immediate apology with a sincere attitude, the relatives on my Mill's side looked at my Phil and me with a startled expression.
Christina, why are you dressed in mourning clothes? It's a family gathering. You should have come in something more casual.
Tom, who had adopted a rather rough tone of speech, was visibly shocked upon seeing me and my Phil in funeral attire. That's understandable. He probably never expected us to show up in funeral attire without even changing clothes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was told suddenly, didn't even have time to change. It's my mom's funeral today, and weren't you getting ready to attend the funeral this morning too? Never thought there'd be such a gathering. When I said that in a matter-of-fact tone, the relatives murmured huh, one by one, exchanging puzzled looks.
Christina's mother's funeral. Why aren't Tom and Mary attending?
It seemed the relatives on my Mill's side were unaware that my mother had passed away, and we were right in the middle of the funeral. My Mill and Tom exchanged awkward glances. These two didn't attend my mother's funeral, didn't say anything to the relatives, and just mingled around at the family gathering as if nothing was wrong. Even when I think about it calmly, it really makes my blood boil.
Oh, hey there, Christina, your mom passed away. Why didn't you tell me? Had I known, I would have definitely attended the funeral.
My Mill put on a troubled face, acting as if she was the only one who didn't know. But such lies are futile. I took out my smartphone from my pocket and showed everyone the message in our family group chat. Oh, there's no way you didn't know. Look, I send a message right here saying Mom passed away. Hey, all three of you have read receipts on. Mary, you did see this message, right? As if to say, proof rather than argument, I held my smartphone screen up in front of my Mill's face. I could see the relatives staring at my Mill and Tom with a heavy gaze. Cornered with no escape, my Mill started to tremble. It seemed I had struck a nerve.
Shut up. Are you trying to pull some sneaky stunt and then come at me with complaints? Do you find it amusing to bully your Mill? And you, after all, I'm the one who gave you my precious Tom in marriage, yet you're being cheeky.
My Mill finally showed her true colors, shouting as if I were the one at fault. However, the relatives who heard her outburst were simply appalled. It was clear who the villain was between me and my Mill. I'll return those words right back to you. It seems like you and Tom, who didn't attend my mother's funeral and are just killing time hanging around here, have no heart. Anyone looking on could probably see the flames of anger in my eyes. Since I usually don't show my emotions, Tom was taken aback and his eyes went wide.
That's not a nice thing to say. It's just, I guess you could say I just got a little carried away. I don't usually do stuff like this. They said it was a gathering of my mom's relatives, so I thought there might be something important going on.
Now, Tom started his own strained excuses. Even if there was something important, is there anything more important than attending your wife's mother's funeral? Even if there was, wouldn't it be common courtesy to at least let me know beforehand? My frustration was reaching its breaking point as neither my mill nor Tom showed any signs of apologizing.
The battery on my phone was dead. I did try to get in touch.
Tom's excuses piled up, but his arguments were so juvenile that I began to feel a headache coming on. As I was contemplating whether continuing to blame my mill and Tom would only lead to a stalemate. Just then, my Phil stepped forward and opened his mouth.
I've been listening to the conversation for a while now. You guys, what you're saying is all over the place. You're being disrespectful to Christina's mother. Apologize.
My Phil spoke in a grave tone to the two of them. Yet, even after hearing his words, my mill and Tom remained unmoved. My Phil, just as if this were the final warning, let out a heavy sigh and opened the voice recorder on his smartphone.
If you won't apologize, I'm about to play the recording now.
My mill and Tom exchanged puzzled looks. Knowing the content of the recording my Phil was about to play, I swallowed hard.
Christina's mom, it's almost time, right?
Yeah. According to Christina, she's pretty weak. I do visit her sometimes, but she's really thin and always hooked up to tubes.
Oh dear, then it's about time, isn't it? I'm looking forward to getting a hefty sum from the inheritance and insurance payout. Make sure you take care of me.
Of course, I do anything for you, Mom.
The voice recording from my FIL's smartphone revealed an unbelievable conversation between Tom and my mill about my mother's condition. The conversation continues.
But to make sure we get all the inheritance and insurance money, both Christina and her father could become obstacles. The inheritance and insurance payout. The recipients are Christina and her father, right? Christina being your wife, her share belongs to you, Tom, but that means we only get half of the inheritance.
Well, that's true, Mom. What are you planning?
You know, it's already decided, isn't it? Once those two are out of the picture, right?
Mom, you're scary.
Although they laughed it off as a joke, it didn't sound like a joke to me at all. The relatives also widened their eyes, staring at my mill and Tom. A month ago, when I visited my in-laws, my Phil told me about this. He said he overheard my mill and Tom having a sketchy conversation in the living room when he went to use the bathroom at midnight. He hastily recorded their conversation with a voice recorder, keeping it as evidence just in case something happened. I couldn't stop trembling when I found out the truth, that Tom had betrayed me and was conspiring with my mill to go after my mother's money. I had thought Tom was so kind and the perfect partner for marriage, and yet he could plot something like this. Since that day, I was filled with doubts about Tom. Hearing the recording, my mill and Tom began to tremble uncontrollably. They must have realized there was no escape.
What is this? This is nonsense. Stop playing tricks.
My mill screamed, but no one was willing to believe her anymore. If it were a video, I wouldn't put it past us to create something. But when it comes to a voice recorder, there's no way my Phil or I could produce voices so realistic. Tom is slouching as if he's given up. After playing the recording, my Phil, with his face red with anger, declared,
Hearing this conversation and Christina's testimony, it's clear that Mary and Tom are up to no good. Not only did they not attend Christina's mother's funeral, but they also planned to harm Christina and her dad to steal the money. What the heck? Apologize to Christina right now.
In a rare display of vehemence, my usually taciturn Phil unleashed a torrent of words, leaving my Mill and Tom quivering in fear.
I'm sorry, please forgive me. I just wanted to live happily with Mom.
I also just loved Tom too much and made a poor judgment.
As the two made excuses, it seemed my FIL's patience finally snapped.
What? You folks seem to have no real intention of reflecting on your actions. I'm filing for divorce with Mary. Can't stand being associated with such out-of-touch people as family. What about you, Christina?
As the word divorce came out of my FIL's mouth, both my Mill and Tom's eyes widened in shock. Yes, of course, I'm divorcing him too. And I'll be collecting every penny of alimony owed to me. Thank you very much. I expressed my thoughts politely and then made eye contact with my Phil, nodding firmly in agreement. First and foremost, both my Phil and I had intended to divorce Tom and my Mill, respectively. We were just waiting for the right moment, and today we finally had a valid reason to bring it up.
Divorce? What do you mean?
Ranting Tom's still okay. As for my Mill, facing the prospect of divorce at her age, her voice trembled with disbelief as she was confronted with the intention for divorce presented to her by my Phil.
How can this be? I've been a housewife ever since we got married. How am I supposed to live now?
My Mill pleaded with my Phil with a desperate look, but he just snorted dismissively and said, I don't give a damn about that. You can rely on sweet Tom, can't you? Effectively shutting her down. With that, my Mill was completely devastated and seemed utterly defeated.
Hey, do we really have to get a divorce? I was brainwashed by my mom. I love Christina. Besides, without me, your life would be tough, right? So.
Tom seemed to misunderstand, thinking I couldn't live without him. I stared him down and said, Unfortunately for you, I can live just fine on my own. I was, living just fine before I married you. Don't flatter yourself by thinking I can't live without you. Plus, I'll be getting a substantial alimony from you, right? With my final statement, Tom slumped down in defeat. My Phil and I exchanged glances, said well then, and left my Mill sister's house to return to my mother's funeral hall. A few days later, I successfully followed through with my declaration and divorced Tom as planned. Considering our marriage lasted less than a year, Tom seemed concerned about public perception. He pleaded with me, can't we just hold off on the divorce for a little longer, at least another year? Realizing his plea was not out of love for me, but merely concern about public perception, I, of course, rejected his request outright. Contrary to his bold demeanor on the day of my mother's funeral, he seemed to have reverted back to his meek personality entirely. Seems to have a dual personality. I realized I had been deceived by him in many ways. Of course, I received alimony from Tom. The fact that we got divorced seemed to hit him pretty hard. He lost his motivation for work and ended up taking a few months off. My in-laws are going through a divorce settlement, and with my mill also struggling emotionally, Tom seems unable to rely on his beloved mother. He's apparently holed up alone at home. Furthermore, being in a small rural area, word about what Tom and my mill have done has spread all over the place. They've started getting looks and whispers from the neighbors, making it uncomfortable for them to stay in the local area. Eventually, as if driven out, they now live in a place with no connections or acquaintances. Tom and my mill, now living together, face an uncertain future on how they will manage to get by. If only Tom had truly seen me and valued my mother, we could have had a happy marriage. This situation is entirely his own doing. If Tom doesn't regain his energy soon, he'll likely end up quitting his job eventually. He'd better try his best to continue his lonely bachelor life. I've sworn to myself that I won't fall for a guy like him anymore, who's only kind on the surface and claims his mother is the most important thing. I've moved away from Tom's hometown and started living again in an apartment near my workplace. This place really feels the most comforting. I'm better suited to living near this bustling downtown district, not in some unfamiliar countryside. I still occasionally contact my former Phil to hear about the progress of the divorce proceedings. I'm thinking about paying him a visit once the divorce goes through smoothly and is finalized. Though he's no longer my Phil, we share a bond through our mutual experiences. I believe we can continue to be on good terms. In a place without Tom, I'll continue living each day to the fullest, ensuring I honor my late mother.
By the time we finished dinner, it was already past 7:30 p.m. My daughter and her husband, John, who had said they'd be back by 6 p.m., left their son, Alex, and haven't contacted us since. Worn out from playing, and with a full belly, Alex was dozing off. He looked sleepy, but he was a bit sandy from playing Explorers, and he definitely needed a bath. Alex is just 5 years old. I filled the bathtub and prepared his favorite bath bomb with a toy inside, thinking he'd enjoy it. Bath time. I called out to Alex and Tom. Then, out of nowhere, Alex woke up fully and started screaming, "I don't want to take a bath, I didn't do anything," and ran around the house trying to escape. We couldn't understand why he was saying that, and were quite puzzled. After all that playing, "I didn't do anything" seemed like a strange thing to say. Alex had a tense look on his face, and we were left wondering. It was clear he was having trouble washing himself. When I washed him from head to toe, I could see his surprised face in the mirror. I had no idea why he was acting that way. It was confusing not knowing what he was thinking. Eventually, Alex cautiously stepped into the bathtub and gradually relaxed. Then he said something surprising.
"The bath is warm, huh?"
"Oh,
I don't like the bath at home, but Grandma's bath is fun and warm and nice."
As he spoke, he began to blame himself, with tears in his eyes. "I am Maggie. I've lived in this small town, not unlike a rural area in Vermont, far from the hustle and bustle of New York City, where trains come every 2 minutes. Here, we have a bus that comes about once an hour, or you need to drive yourself. Being from the countryside, my parents and relatives always encouraged me to live here my whole life. I don't mind living in this town. Here, it's expected for women to be homemakers. So, after graduating high school, I married Tom, whom I met through a matchmaking process, and have been a stay-at-home wife. Tom has always been kind, not the domineering husband type. Shortly after we got married, we were blessed with our daughter, Emily. She was like a treasure to us. We tried our best to shield her from local gossip and the constraints of our surroundings. Emily seemed to enjoy living here when she was younger. However, the local customs and attitudes probably didn't sit well with someone of her generation. Relatives living here long-term often had harsh words. Emily gradually started spending less time at home, creating distance between us.
I'll be studying at school today. I don't need dinner.
Probably, her desire to leave this place motivated her. From the time she entered high school, she began to focus more on her studies, even before we could say anything. Unlike in the city, there aren't many tutoring centers or private tutors here. She spent her days attending school lessons and studying after school. She even quit the choir club. She loved to make more time for studying. Her efforts paid off, and she got into her first choice university in the city. She started living on her own in the city. Luckily, she had helped with household chores at home, so she didn't have any problems. She managed her university life by working part-time jobs and taking out student loans, insisting on not relying on us. We did send her money, but she insisted on not using our help. She would accept things we sent, but we never knew what happened to them. It seemed she didn't use the money we transferred. And so, Emily graduated from the College of Education without any setbacks and became a middle school teacher. She apparently got married to a colleague she met at work, John Mercer, in her second year as a professional. The reason this sounds like it's about someone else is because we haven't been in touch much since she went off to college. For Emily, this small town and her childhood home are places she'd rather not return to.
I'm not staying in this town. I live in New York. It's more convenient, and you can do anything there.
Over the past decade, the number of times we've seen Emily face to face could be counted on one hand. Most of those times were when we visited her in New York. Occasionally, due to Tom's work, we'd go to places like New York or somewhere else in the greater New York area. We'd contact her, and the three of us would go out to eat. John never showed up to these meals. The only time we saw both of them together was when they unexpectedly visited our house to announce their marriage.
We decided to get married, so we thought we should at least come to say hi.
However, John didn't seem much interested in our hometown. Since you've come all this way, why not stay for some tea?
No, thank you.
Emily also seemed like she was just there to fulfill a duty, and left soon after.
I have work tomorrow, so I need to head back. You've seen John. Satisfied now?
We've never met John's parents. and any conversation about his family ends up vague or unanswered. We don't even know where he's from or about his family background. Take care of yourselves. Text me sometime. We felt lonely, but couldn't convey this to Emily. We anticipated being ignored if we shared our feelings. And we didn't want to experience the sadness and emptiness of being neglected. Besides, being a teacher is demanding, I've heard. They both advise school clubs and often work weekends. Emily's place in the city is too far from our home. It's hard for her to visit us casually, which likely makes it easier to drift apart. Emily has changed in ways we don't know. Still, somewhere deep down, we hope to start over as a family again. I have mixed feelings about Emily. 3 years into her marriage, they had a son. He was named Alex. He's our first grandchild. When we were informed about the birth, we rushed to the hospital. I was determined to just see his face and then head back home. Right after giving birth, she must have been mentally and physically exhausted. Plus, wanting to enjoy some quiet family time is understandable. It was winter, and with sickness going around, we didn't want to risk bringing anything into the hospital. Congratulations on the birth. Remember, we're here if you need us.
Drop by our house when you can.
We wanted to stay longer but didn't overstay our welcome. However, even after Alex turned 1, Emily and her family rarely visited us. Our desire to see Emily and Alex only grew stronger after his birth. We kept calling, spacing out the calls. Not wanting to be too pushy, but longing to see them. If it's too hard for you to come here, we can come to you. If it's better not at home, how about going somewhere else, like the zoo or a park?
I'm busy with club activities and grading tests.
Then, how about we take care of Alex? We really wish we could give you a break.
It's the thought that counts. I'm too busy to take him out. If you can take him to the zoo or a park, that would be great.
Thank you. After that, we started looking after Alex about every 6 months. Emily would hand him over to us at the nearest train station to their home in the morning.
I have to accompany the club to a competition, so I'll pick him up around the usual time.
We'd then take Alex to places he wanted to go, like the aquarium or amusement parks. Some days were spent just watching the trains go by. Alex would run around a lot in parks, but in public places like aquariums or shopping malls, he behaved quietly. Emily and John are teachers, although they deal with middle school students. They must be teaching Alex good manners. We praised Alex a lot and played with him plenty. At first, he was surprised when we patted his head, but gradually he started showing a happy expression. By around 6 p.m., it seemed Emily would finish work and come to pick up Alex. After several visits, Alex began to cry, not wanting to go home. Probably beginning to understand that our time together would end as it got closer to 6 p.m.
I want to play more with Grandma and Grandpa.
We'll come to visit again soon.
You have kindergarten tomorrow, so we need to head back.
It was hard for us to let him go, watching his back as he left. As he grows, he seems to want to play more. We'd like to increase the frequency of our visits, but we have to consider Emily's schedule. Since they don't stay overnight, our time together is always short. We've suggested staying over during longer holidays. However, it hasn't happened yet, as Emily prefers they all sleep together at night. I hear boys only want to sleep with their parents when they're little. There are things I don't understand, having only raised a daughter. Emily often says she wants to cherish every moment. We can't disregard a mother's feelings. So we just let them know they're welcome anytime, and wait for Emily to reach out. When Alex was about 5 years old, we received a rare call from Emily.
Work has settled down this year. Can we visit you during the Christmas holidays?
We don't mind at all. You're always welcome. It's been about 8 years since Emily last visited home, aside from when she announced her marriage. Maybe Alex has grown enough to be less of a handful compared to his infancy. After receiving the call, we were thrilled at the prospect of the family being together again. I've always made appetizers and pies, but this year, with more people coming, I'm putting in even more effort. Emily used to love chestnut tarts, so I'll prepare extra. We also made fried chicken because Alex loves it. Tom polished up the house in anticipation of our grandson's first overnight stay. Marking the calendar, counting down the days, I couldn't help but smile at his eagerness. Tom isn't much of a talker, but his excitement was clear through his expressions and actions. That much shows how much I'm looking forward to Emily and her family coming home. Finally, the day arrived. They reached our nearest station, so we went to pick them up. This area is inconvenient without a car, but it's too far to drive directly from the city. They are making the effort to stay over, so we want to be as hospitable as possible. Welcome back. Come on, get in.
Thank you for picking us up.
Emily and her family were greeted with our beaming smiles as we got them into the car. We thought they'd want to relax at home for the first few days. But our assumptions were quickly proven wrong.
It's been a while since I've been here, but nothing seems to have changed.
With the aging population and little chance for development, can we go to our house directly?
We have plans with friends. Just take Alex back with you. Can you stop here? We'll get off.
And just like that, leaving Alex in the car, Emily and John got out halfway.
We'll be back by 6 p.m. Please take care of Alex.
Be good, okay.
Alex silently watched them leave. Though he didn't say it, I could feel his loneliness.
Alex, let's play with Grandpa. It's your first time here, so how about we start with an exploration game?
We have fried chicken and pudding too. Seeing Alex's lonely expression made us feel sorry for him. We wanted to entertain him as much as possible, so Tom and I worked together to do everything we could. After playing with Tom and eating the snacks I made, Alex showed us his smile. Seeing our grandson's smiling face was a happy time for us too. Even though it was past the 6 p.m. that Emily said they'd be back, they hadn't returned. Not only that, but no matter how much we called their cell, we got no response. We started to worry they hadn't been in an accident. The last bus had already left, and this isn't the kind of place where you can easily catch a taxi. Surrounded by fields with no convenience stores nearby and few lights, it's not impossible that something could happen. We prepared to be able to act immediately in case we got a call or they needed a pickup, waiting for any contact from them. The dinner table, which was supposed to be surrounded by 5 of us, was now just Tom, Alex, and me. Of course, we left Emily's and John's portions untouched. What lifted my slightly saddened spirits was Alex, smiling broadly in front of his favorite foods.
Grandma's homemade meals are super delicious.
Alex finished all the fried chicken I prepared just for him. It was the first time I saw him eat so much. By the time we finished dinner, it was past 7:30 p.m. Alex, tired from playing and full from dinner, was dozing off. He looked sleepy, but he had gotten a bit dirty from playing Explorer, so he needed a bath. I filled the tub with hot water and prepared his favorite character bath bomb. That comes with a toy inside. I thought he'd enjoy it. Bath time. I called out to Alex and Tom. But then Alex woke up and suddenly shouted, "I don't want to take a bath. I didn't do anything," and started running around the house. We were perplexed by his words. After playing so much, what did he mean by "I didn't do anything"? "Alex, the bath's ready. Let's go in with Grandma." Even though I wanted to ask why he was reluctant, he was running around so much that we couldn't have a conversation. He crawled under the table or dashed up the stairs to the second floor. Tom and I are both around 50. Alta Hugh were a bit involved in farming. We really felt our ages trying to catch him. We managed to corner Alex with Tom's help. His tense expression made us question what was wrong. Certainly, being caught wouldn't be fun. It was clear he wasn't just upset about losing a game of tag. We got him to the changing room, but he wouldn't undress, so we ended up doing it for him. It seemed difficult for him to wash himself, so I washed him from head to toe. He looked surprised in the mirror as I did so. I had no idea why he was acting this way, making me feel even more confused. Alex slowly softened his expression as he soaked in the tub, then said something surprising.
"The bath is warm, huh?"
His words and behavior up until then made me suspect something had happened. His running away at the mention of a bath must be related. While I was wondering how to respond, Alex began to speak. "Garant baths where you get cold water poured on you." I wondered why I had to take off my clothes. "No, it's a place to clean and warm up your body. Why did you think cold water would be poured on you?"
"Mom and Dad say I'm a bad boy. They always take me to the bath for punishment."
Alex didn't blame Emily or John in his words. While nearly in tears, he blamed himself.
"I don't like the bath at home, but Grandma's bath is fun and warm, and I like it."
Alex, who had looked like he might cry, was now smiling in the tub. I hugged him tightly. wanting to protect this smile that must have been hurt in ways we didn't know about forever. After persuading Alex, who wanted to stay in the bath forever, to get out before he got too overheated, it pained me to see his hair, realizing he likely hadn't been to a salon in a while. Yet, I couldn't help but think there was truth in the busyness of their jobs. I took him to a freshly dried, fluffy bed, where he fell asleep quickly from exhaustion. I decided to make the next day fun for him too, as I watched his peaceful sleeping face. After making sure Alex had fallen asleep, I discussed what happened in the bath with Tom.
I see. So that's what happened.
Tom said, with a troubled look on his face. It seems that's why he was crying so much whenever we were about to leave. I also shared something I noticed in the bath. Look at this. I quietly pointed out the numerous bruises on Alex's body. A few bruises are common in the upbringing of a 5-year-old boy. However, the number of bruises on Alex was extraordinary. All hidden under his clothes. Bruises on his stomach and back seemed like they couldn't have been made unless someone intentionally inflicted them. Alex might run around where it's safe but behaves maturely beyond his years in public spaces. He's not the type to get into fights or throw tantrums.
Even with their own child, there are things they should and shouldn't do. This is absolutely unforgivable.
Unable to contain his frustration, Tom immediately called Emily and John. But neither of them answered. I want to protect Alex right away. Who should we consult in this situation?
A child welfare office might take too long. Since it involves violence against a child, we should contact the police.
With a heavy heart, Tom made the call to the police. Regardless of Emily being our own daughter, we never raised her to harm others, especially her own child. I hoped it was all a misunderstanding. Such thoughts of escapism floated in my mind. Yet, the bruises and Alex's demeanor in the bath forced us to face reality. I was angry at myself for not noticing sooner. Despite it being 10 p.m., the police arrived at our house promptly. Although I had explained some details over the phone, we went over the situation in person. While showing photos of Alex's bruises that I had taken, Emily and John returned home.
Is this your son?
Yes, what about it?
John responded aggressively.
We received a report about multiple bruises on his body.
Boys will be boys. They play and get bruises.
It's hard to believe these bruises came from normal play, especially in these locations. Also, your son mentioned being doused with cold water on his head.
That is.
The two of them couldn't respond to the police's questions and began to speak softer. John no longer argued boldly with the police officer. After a moment of silence, Emily began to speak as if in desperation.
It's all Alex's fault. Despite being the child of teachers, he's too poorly behaved. We only disciplined him a little.
Blaming everything on Alex. They insisted it was all justifiable. I was furious at their reasoning, but knew that confronting them angrily would not solve anything. I restrained myself from raising my voice, instead intently waiting for the police officer's next move. Suddenly, Tom left and quickly returned with a bucket in each hand. In the next moment, he poured the bucket full of water over Emily and John's heads. Both the police officer and I were taken aback by his action. Tom, with an expressionless face, stared at them and said, "That's just a fraction of what you did to Alex. Never come to our house again."
John Mercer, Emily, could we discuss this further at the station?
Understood.
Emily and John agreed to go with the police officer to the police station. The commotion woke up Alex, it seems. "You don't have to be scared anymore. Let's sleep together, just the three of us tonight." To alleviate any of Alex's fears, Tom, Alex, and I got into bed together. I was overwhelmed with worry about what would happen next. But I kept telling myself there was no other choice if we wanted to protect Alex. Following the police and child welfare investigation, Emily and John were formally arrested. It turned out there were more instances of mistreatment against Alex than what he had told me. There were times they didn't feed him, and when his bruises were bad, they made him stay home alone without letting him go to kindergarten. The kindergarten teacher had felt something was off and had been keeping a watchful eye, prepared to intervene. Seeing Alex's joy at the fried chicken and large portions of food, probably related to his past experiences, their arrest was on the local newspaper in their city. And with their names published, their workplaces were quickly identified. Naturally, the news spread to our small community as well. For a while, Alex was kept out of kindergarten due to concern from other parents. Neighbors bombarded us with questions. And while some understood, others were harsh. However, everyone agreed that reporting them was the right thing to do. Arrested for child abuse, it's unlikely Emily and John could return to their professions even if they were released. Tom's act of pouring water in front of the police officer was settled with just a warning. Meanwhile, Alex came to live with us. Next year, he'll be starting elementary school, which only has one class per grade level and a small number of students. And the news of his parents' arrest has spread. Rumors can be deadly in a small town like ours. We set up a new home not too far from Emily and John's, as we couldn't leave the family farm behind. And Alex didn't want to part from his kindergarten friends. Living between two homes started a new chapter for us. At first, Alex was frightened by the shadow of his parents.
Am I a bad kid for doing this?
No way, Alex. You're a good kid.
The negative words his parents had used haunted him like a curse. We did everything we could to make him feel secure and loved, erasing those scars bit by bit. Fortunately, he was able to enroll in the nearby elementary school and even made new friends. I feel like we are slowly easing his worries. Years have passed since then, and Alex seems to be thriving. He attends school daily unless he's sick, and sometimes plays with friends after school. On weekends and holidays, he helps with farm work or household chores. and has even started a new hobby.
I want to try soccer. Dad said no when I asked before.
That sounds great. It's good to try new things and see if you enjoy them. Gradually, Alex began to share more of his thoughts and feelings with us. Acting as his grandparents, we've done our best to fill the roles of his actual parents. Despite our age and back pains, we've participated in parent-child races at sports festivals. And we felt honored when Alex wrote about us in his People I Admire essay for school.
The person I admire the most is my grandparents. They always think about what's best for me and teach me right from wrong.
We're committed to protecting Alex's smile for as long as we can.
As passers-by pointed their smartphones at him, my father-in-law yelled shamelessly.
Could it be? Are you the police? Have you been watching me? Please, I beg you, I'll pay you off. Just let me go.
What? Money? What are you talking about?
Yikes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Trying to solve it with money. Saying that to someone he thought might be a cop. That's the worst. I'm Molly, 32 years old. I got married right before I turned 30, 2 years ago. My husband, Steve, is a timid company employee, 2 years older than me. He used to practice kickboxing when he was younger and was quite strong back then. But now he's put on some weight. He used to be quite strong back in his active days, according to himself. We live with my mother-in-law, Kathy. We chose to live together in a 2-bedroom apartment because we dream of eventually owning a house. Thanks to both of us working hard, our savings are on track. I've been able to keep working full throttle even after getting married, thanks to Kathy. Kathy takes on most of the household chores between her part-time jobs. Laundry, shopping, cleaning. She does it all. I'm so grateful I can't thank her enough. One day, Kathy, Steve, and I went to the supermarket and were shocked. Alcohol, chocolate, meat. Everything seemed to have gone up in price just a bit. I had heard about it on the news. But since Kathy does most of the shopping, I hadn't really felt it. I thought I had done something wrong. Kathy, are we okay with the household expenses?
What?
Kathy and Steve looked puzzled at my question. It's been a while since I've been to the supermarket. I didn't realize everything had gone up so much. I'm sorry, it's because I've left everything to you, Kathy. Wasn't it difficult shopping?
Maybe. It does feel like everything's gotten a bit more expensive.
Steve agreed, and I squinted at him. Do you really understand?
I'm sorry, I lied. I don't really understand.
Steve admitted with a laugh and quickly gave up.
But it really has gotten more expensive, right? Look, that little kid's crane game prize costs $5 now. When we were kids, you could play for just $1. I guess when we have kids, they'll be begging for stuff like that. Well, let's save that story for another time. Mom, we'll start giving you a bit more for the household expenses. There's only so much you can save, and it's no good if we can't eat what we want.
Saying that, Steve put back the cheaper malt liquor and picked up a more expensive beer. Watching our exchange, Kathy smiled warmly.
Molly, Steve, thank you. I'll make sure not to waste anything.
And then Kathy put the beer back on the shelf. Steve shrugged like a child caught being naughty. After that conversation, Kathy began to focus even more on saving. According to her, I had to get serious to make sure our savings aren't affected. Kathy started learning about cashless payments and rewards collecting, things she previously found difficult. She now turns off the TV when not in use, and even uses the used water for the garden plants. We, too, are working together with Kathy to reduce waste. However, at the same time, Kathy started doing something that went against her saving efforts. I'm home. Sorry I'm late. I'm exhausted.
Welcome back. Mom is currently changing the water in the bathtub, so why don't you eat first?
Right. I'll go change. What Kathy started that went against her saving efforts was changing the bathwater after Steve had used it. I don't know why she started doing this. Lately, Steve has been considerate and makes sure he is the last to take a bath. Today I came home late from work, which is why the bath water was changed. Why did Kathy start doing this?
I don't know. She just says it's nothing when I ask, so I really can't tell.
Steve scratched his bare bloated tummy while reheating the dinner. We tilted our heads but didn't think much of stopping Kathy's peculiar behavior. A few months later, I took a weekday off to go to the gynecologist. Steve came along too. After the examination, Steve and I sat anxiously. The doctor casually announced,
"You're pregnant."
"Really?"
"Yes. This round spot here is the sac containing the baby."
A long-awaited baby. I'm so happy. Extremely happy. The doctor explained various things, but my mind was too filled with joy to properly remember everything. As the doctor finished explaining, she offhandedly asked,
"Is that eczema on his arm?"
"What?" I responded oddly because it was such a sudden change of subject. "Steve's arm." Indeed, lately, Steve has been suffering from severe skin irritation. His arms are red and scaly.
The ointment for eczema can be used by pregnant women too, so it's okay for you to apply it on his back. Whether it's hereditary or not isn't clearly established yet, so don't worry too much about it.
Okay.
Steve nodded ambiguously. I wondered if the doctor thought the condition of Steve's arm required prescription medication. He seemed a bit anxious. He's a big guy but so timid. Should you visit a dermatologist?
I think I should. Molly will.
I'll go with you. Relief was evident on Steve's face when I said that. No need to be so nervous about a dermatologist visit. You're too much of a scaredy cat. Come on, toughen up as a dad, Steve. When we got home, we shared the news of the pregnancy with Kathy, who was preparing dinner.
Mom, actually, Molly is pregnant.
Oh my.
Kathy's eyes widened in shock. We thought she would be thrilled, but contrary to our expectations, her reaction was subdued.
Congratulations. So, it's a baby.
Mom, what's wrong?
No, it's a joyous occasion, yes.
Kathy's complexion grew increasingly pale, which unsettled me. I thought she would be happy about the baby. Steve, noticing his mother's odd behavior, became frantic.
What's wrong, Mom? Are you feeling ill?
It's nothing, is that medication for Molly, something like iron supplements.
Kathy pointed at the pharmacy bag Steve was holding.
If there's a baby coming, we need to be careful with food.
Oh, this is mine. We went to the dermatologist after the gynecologist. Apparently, my skin has been under stress. It seems like dermatitis. I don't know why. Anyway, they gave me some dermatitis medication. Mom.
Kathy. Upon hearing Steve's explanation, Kathy collapsed to the floor as if her knees gave out. What suddenly happened? As we panicked, Kathy confessed.
I'm sorry. The dermatitis is my fault.
What? It's your fault, Kathy.
I'm sorry. I've been tampering with the bathwater Steve uses. I've been adding a large amount of moisturizer I bought online.
Moisturizer? Kathy nodded. She showed us her purchase history on Amazon on her smartphone. It listed several unfamiliar chemicals. Looking closer, they seemed to be ingredients commonly found in bath additives.
I've been putting about 10 times the recommended amount of this medication in the bathwater, hoping it would cause skin rashes and itching on Steve.
10 times? That's almost like poison. You did that to me.
I thought if you had physical issues, you wouldn't feel like having a child.
I didn't know how to react. It was just moisturizer. Steve was calling it poison and making a fuss, but it clearly wasn't an actual poison. He had skin issues, but we still ended up having a baby. It's all a bit mixed. If it had been something clearly bad, I might have been angrier. But what really bothers me isn't the tampering with the bath. Kathy, did you not want to have a grandchild? That was more shocking. I had taken for granted that she would be happy about a grandchild. Kathy apologized deeply.
I'm sorry. I am looking forward to the grandchild, but I'm sorry.
Why? Why, Mom?
As Steve pressed for answers, Kathy began to mumble her reasons.
It might sound like an excuse, but I was abused by my ex-husband.
What?
Steve was just a baby, so you wouldn't remember, but it was awful. I would cover you with my body to stop his pinches from reaching you. I was helpless, getting hit and kicked. I thought he would kill me, so I ran away with baby Steve from him.
I had no idea. Kathy is always so calm and kind. I couldn't have guessed she went through that. Kathy continued speaking while still looking down the floor.
I really am looking forward to the grandchild, that's true, but when I see a baby, it triggers flashbacks of those times. That's why the idea of being at home all day with a baby scares me. I'm not ready.
Kathy.
I'm sorry for being selfish and causing trouble. Congratulations on the baby.
Kathy said she needed to cool off and went outside. She should have talked to us. I had no idea about Kathy's past. My emotions are all over the place. Are you okay?
I'm not okay.
Yeah, I get it. Steve was deeply upset upon learning that his father was an abusive man and that his mother had been tampering with the bath.
I'm starting to feel anxious. What if I turn out like him?
That's not going to happen. What are you saying? I was startled by Steve's words. I know he's a worrier, but... Come on. It's going to be fine. You're not like that.
You,
Oh, come on. This guy... I was on top of the world knowing about the pregnancy, and now this. I rubbed my belly and let out a heavy sigh. A few days passed. Kathy and we started adjusting our schedules to minimize face-to-face time. What are we going to do now? Out of the blue, Steve said,
I've been thinking. The real problem was my father.
Yeah. I agree. Kathy's silence and her actions with the bath weren't great, but the root of all evil was the Steve's father who abused her.
I want to see my father, just once. I want to know about my roots, sort of speak. I don't have the courage to talk to him directly, but I'd like to see him from a distance. So, I'm thinking of asking Mom about what he's up to these days.
Steve had a look of determination like I'd never seen before. Usually gentle, even to the point of seeming indecisive, it was surprising to see him with such a tense expression. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. I felt a sense of reliability in Steve for the first time. So, Steve's father. I want to see him too. Can I come with you? At my question, Steve's face brightened instantly.
Will you come? That's great. I was feeling anxious about going alone. Well, I'm so relieved.
Hey, there goes his solemn look. Just when he was looking good. Well, this is more like him.
Let's act quickly then. Let's go ask Mom.
Okay. Before Steve could hesitate, we knocked on Kathy's door. It was that weekend. We had come to the apartment complex where Steve's parents had lived when they were newlyweds. Kathy and her ex-husband had been estranged for nearly 30 years. If he had moved, we would have no idea where to find him. It couldn't be helped. Deciding to give up if he had moved, we visited the apartment complex, half hoping he would be there, and half hoping he wouldn't. We silently searched him there. While checking the mailboxes of the 5th building, I made a discovery. Oh, hey, isn't this it? Among the rows of mailboxes, I found the name Kathy had mentioned. In the slot for the nameplate, a yellowed paper read Thomas Hanks.
My father. He's here.
Seems like it. Steve stared blankly at the mailbox. Then he slowly looked up at the building.
Probably that room on the 3rd floor. The lights are on. He might be in.
Should we ring the intercom?
No, 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 no.
Steve shook his head vigorously.
I don't have the courage for that.
You don't have to say it so proudly. Realizing it was impossible to face him directly, Steve shouted, so we sat down in the shade of the bicycle parking area. We spent the time discussing whether we should press the intercom, hoping maybe he would peek out the window. About an hour after we sat down, the window of the room where Thomas was living closed. Wait, is that Thomas coming out?
What? What should we do?
As we strained our ears, we heard the sound of footsteps descending the stairs. Clink, clink, clink. We watched the entrance anxiously. Then, he appeared. A tall, thin, dark-skinned man. I knew it at first glance. That man was Steve's father. Their faces were so alike. If Steve were to lose weight and age, he would probably look just like that. Thomas walked off, wearing a red cap and a displeased expression, heading towards the station.
There he goes. That man.
Steve quietly stood up and began to discreetly follow the man he believed to be his father. I quickly caught up to Steve. Keeping a safe distance, we followed the man. As we were about to reach the station, the man suddenly picked up his pace. Did he realize he was being followed? Startled, We were about to be shocked even more. Incredibly, Thomas briskly walked into a young woman coming from the opposite direction. What? The woman was knocked down by the impact. Thomas didn't even glance at her and continued on his way. Hey. What is he doing? Are you okay?
Yes.
We rushed to the woman who had been pushed. She removed her earphones and nodded to us.
That man is known around here as the bumping man. I wasn't paying attention.
The bumping man.
Since Steve seemed confused, I explained. He's someone who intentionally bumps into people at trains and stations, like an assailant.
What is that?
I don't know much either, but such people exist in the world. Fortunately, the woman wasn't injured. We watched her go. Steve muttered as he watched Thomas walk away with a stern expression.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Steve slumped his shoulders in disappointment. Thomas had redirected his aggression from Kathy to complete strangers. Maybe we shouldn't have come to see him, Steve's father. Steve was so shocked that he sat down on a station bench and couldn't move. The day was almost over, but I couldn't bring myself to suggest going home. I'll go get some drinks. Steve just nodded silently. How could I cheer up Steve? I bought coffee at the station stand and walked slowly back towards Steve, feeling at a loss. Saying cheer up wouldn't help, and telling him don't worry wouldn't either. What should I do? As I was pondering, Steve was walking towards me. His expression was stern, but he seemed to have regained some will to move. I quickened my pace. Here's the coffee, huh? Steve walked right past me. Why? Just as I wondered this,
You!
I heard a scream from behind me. Startled, I turned around to find Steve standing over a man who was on the ground. A red cap lay nearby. It was Thomas. I stared blankly at the two of them.
You were just about to bump into him, weren't you?
What? No, I didn't. But
If I hadn't stepped in, you would have pushed him over.
Thomas was stammering, clearly lying, and his eyes darted around. Up close, the resemblance between him and Steve was undeniable. Though Thomas probably had no idea that the man who thwarted him was his own son. Steve, with his experience in kickboxing, had no trouble handling a lanky man.
Don't lie. You suddenly changed your direction and started walking fast towards him. It was a really unnatural movement. I sue everything.
No, that's not. You're mistaken.
Huh?
Yeah. I mean,
You also bumped into a woman with their phones earlier today.
What?
He's overreacting. After acting like a hit-and-run thug, this is his reaction when caught. It's pathetic how jittery he is. Some passers-by are pointing their smartphone cameras at us.
Wait, you might be the police. You were watching me, weren't you? Please, I'll pay you. Just let me go.
What? Money? What are you talking about?
Yikes. Sorry.
Trying to solve this with money. Saying that to someone he thought was police? This man is definitely Steve's father, but I feel absolutely no desire to be kind to him. Steve said with a lifted eye.
I'm not the police. I don't want your money. I don't know what you're thinking, but it's disgraceful. Stop doing things like this. Bumping into people and running away is cowardly. Don't ever do it again. Got it?
Yes.
Do you really understand?
Yeah. Yes. I won't do it again.
I wonder if that's true. But he seems like a coward, so maybe he won't after being yelled at like this. And it's all caught on video by passers-by. After a brief moment, Steve silently turned around.
Let's go home.
Yeah. Steve was slightly teary-eyed. Later, a video taken by someone ended up on the news. It was featured in the viewer submission segment as the Bumping Man video. Our faces were blurred, but it was definitely us. Afterwards, reporters staked out the station and interviewed Thomas, who blurted out his past misdeeds during the flustered interview. He talked about how he had been violent towards his wife and committed shoplifting. Due to that, he briefly became infamous. Obviously, not in a good way. Now famous locally, he will probably have to live a diminished life, wary of the public eye. Our living arrangement with Kathy ended when she moved out, apologizing continuously for tampering with the bath. However, Kathy's new studio apartment is just a 10-minute walk away. She's volunteering at a children's center now, trying to get used to being around small children. The awkward relationship between Steve and Kathy is gradually healing with the distance. Maybe someday, if Kathy overcomes her trauma, we could live together again. Next time, instead of renting, maybe we could even buy our dream house. The baby in my belly is growing well. It's a boy. I just worry he might end up timid like his father. But remember, your dad can really step up when needed. He's a reliable man who can protect his family. I'll love and protect you thoroughly too. So, come into the world without worry.